Hi, in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about direct-to-consumer webinars, how I've seen loan officers use them, their effectiveness, and also how you can set yourself apart using them, right? I want to talk a little bit about a live webinar versus an automated webinar, the pros and cons, as well as just some software tools that I know of just with my own business, as well as seeing other loan officers use these tools and products, okay? So first and foremost, why are webinars really effective? And what type of webinars are really effective for loan officers? I know, I'm 36, I know our generation tends to like to educate themselves online before they directly dive into the home buying process. It's not like they wake up one day and say, I want to buy a house. They go onto Zillow and immediately they're meeting with an LO and closing within a month. That's not happening. Borrowers are spending months, I would say 3 to 6 months on average from what we're seeing, just researching, even if they're credit ready, even if their debt to income is ready, they're still spending 3 to 6 months researching and thinking about this process. It's a really big purchase decision. So while the consumer thinks this through this process, all the loan officers want to try to find them when they're ready to buy. But the reality is, if you want to be top of mind for consumer, speaking to them early in their research process is really, really important, because if you educate them and provide the resources and information they need, the likelihood that they're going to originate with you is higher. It's more work, but these are the tools and tips that could help you in nurturing this customer and providing those tools and services without spending a ton of your time. And that's why I want to talk about webinars, because you could do like a live webinar once a week, right? I recommend Live Webinar. That's a great software. You could just, if you already have a Zoom account, you could just do it on Zoom as well, and even possibly record that Zoom and send it out to people who said they were going to attend but couldn't, right? So Zoom is fine as well if you want to do it live. And then there's a software called Live Webinar, which allows you to, it has a little more functionality than Zoom for the webinar purposes. It allows you to brand it and various other things. But the reason that it's so good is people can ask their questions live, right? And a topic that I've seen loan officers do that is super helpful is something as basic as like, how much home can I afford? Or what is a debt to income ratio? Like, what is that, right? So if you just made a webinar, very basically answering those questions, along with answering the questions that consumers directly have themselves, like they'll come with scenarios like, well, I get this type of income, I have this debt to this, does this count? And my student loans are on pause, does that count towards my debt to income? Like for us dealing with student loans, we get questions like, how does my student loans count towards my debt to income when I'm in payment pause? Like, we're about to move out of payment pause, blah, 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 blah. How does that impact my debt to income? Things like that they'll ask, right? So it's great to have a live webinar for that purpose. However, if you're a high volume LO and you're doing tons of online marketing, like paid advertising, whether it's through Facebook, YouTube, etc., then perhaps going the route of thinking about an automated webinar may be really, really helpful. It's essentially an automated webinar allows a consumer to click and schedule when they want the webinar, and you could literally have it 5 times a day, or 7 times a day. They could watch it at midnight if they wanted, right? After they put the kids to bed and catch up on whatever chores, they could watch your webinar, and it makes it feel live, where they can still chat their questions. And it depends on the software you use, but you can respond over email. Not that I'm saying you would do this at midnight, but you could respond over an email and they would get the answer within the live webinar chat, right? So they think you're there responding to their questions. How we recommend doing an automated webinar is to actually do a live one, record it. Once you have really, really good engagement, then you could use that webinar as an automated webinar. And since you do it live, you're live answering people's Q&A. So if someone asks a question you don't answer, they just think you didn't get to their question. They don't think that you're not there, right? Obviously, if you're doing it at midnight, they'll know it's like not live, but they make it feel as live as possible, right? So maybe don't schedule at midnight, schedule it at like 9 p.m. But the point is that it allows people to watch it more like a video they're watching on YouTube, but also get their personalized questions answered, because it'll send you an email and you could still engage with that consumer, right? So the pros and cons of live versus a automated webinar. The pros of a live is people get their questions answered right away. You get to engage with them personally. The cons are if you start to pick up volume and number of people that want to come, you can't serve their needs across all different time zones because they have to wait for that one live session a week or a day or whatever the frequency you want to put it, right? An automated webinar con is that you might not get to their question right away, right? The pro is that it's on demand, so they can watch it when it's most convenient for them. So that's just going over a few pros and cons, along with the most common topic. All you really need is how much home can I afford? And you could literally pull up the LoanSense tool and have them and use them, even our affordability tool. I know we calculate student loan debt. So if they have student loan debt, great. But even without, it still calculates basic affordability, right? If you just answer that question and explain debt to income in like the most basic, what do you need for loan application, things you would answer anyways, you could do it in this webinar format and have them learn from other people's questions as well. It's quite powerful, right? And you get to build you get to tell your personal story. You get to relate to people on an individual level that you wouldn't in a conversation, right? You wouldn't say, this is why I care about helping first-time borrowers close on a home. You wouldn't tell your story on every single conversation, but you can use it as a platform to tell your story, to have the consumer relate to you very personally. And that also sets you apart and sets your brand apart. And so that's why I believe webinars are so effective. And it's really the way to engage someone. So let's say someone comes to you and they're not ready to buy for the next 6 months. Let's say that. You can still send them to this webinar, right? You could still send them emails afterwards. You can still engage with them, right? If you have 2 different webinar topics, they attend one, a month later you follow up, invite them to another webinar topic, right? So it's like a way to keep top of mind to these consumers who care about educating themselves ahead of a large purchase, which makes so much sense, right? A couple of the tools we've used, like I mentioned, live webinar. There's also one that just came out that we haven't tried. We're not getting paid by them or anything, but it is literally the lowest cost tool I've seen is Webinar Kit. So that's a good one. We haven't used them or anything, but they do automated webinars. There's also Easy Webinar. There's other webinar softwares that are automated, but they tend to be more expensive. And for some loan officers, cost prohibitive. So if you want to share this software costs across multiple loan officers within your office, that might also be smart. So let us know if you have any questions. We hope this overview on the power of consumer webinars was good. Let us know if you have any questions. Leave comments below. Let us know how we can help. We do, by the way, within our service, have a direct-to-consumer webinar as it pertains to how does my student loans affect my ability to buy a house, right? Within our marketing materials, we also have direct-to-consumer webinar and slides you can directly use. We also have a bunch of different chapters and content for borrowers within our learning management system that we do directly give to you as a loan officer that you can also use. So you don't have to build this content from scratch. If you're our customer and want to request that we give you some slides or whatever, we can build that for you, even so that producing a webinar is easy. You don't have to go in knowing an exact script, but we can give you kind of like the format of a good webinar, right? Since we've done so many of them for our customers. So just let us know especially if you're a paying customer, we want to get you, we're creating content weekly. We want to get you the information you need so you can succeed with your borrowers. Let us know how we can help. Any questions, info@myloansense.com.